Hello, and a very warm welcome to Cultural Communication Confidence with me, Victoria Reynoldson. And welcome back to the show. We are sharing here today a very important topic that many people ask me about, which is connected to the theme of how to become a global leader. This is episode 2 of 3, where we're exploring the themes, the most important questions that I think you need if you are serious about stepping up towards your next promotion as a global leader. So today's theme, we're talking about talk so people lean in, how to speak confidently and boldly. Now, this is one that comes up time and time again because people often ask me about this point around how to be clear and concise, how to come across articulately, how to structure what they say so that people really listen to what they have in their minds, how they have the points to share. It is an important part of your professional reputation, how you're perceived. And in fact, we talked a bit about this in the last episode. So people recognize your value and that you get more visible. So if you haven't had the chance to listen to that episode, I highly recommend that you go back and listen to that. And I'll put a link in the show notes to that. But coming back to today's topic, this idea of being able to speak like a leader, to speak articulately, boldly, confidently, this is often coming up for people who don't feel that today. In fact, they're not feeling that way when they walk into their meetings, when they do their updates, when they're perhaps giving the messages to their senior management team. So let's break it down into two core areas that we're going to talk about today. The first core area is your message, what it is that you want to say. Now, I appreciate that many of you listening to this podcast are busy people, and you probably don't have any time to plan, well, maybe very little time to plan for your meetings. But if you consider something a really important update with people who have a particular view on your professional reputation, perhaps even our decision makers on your next promotion, then it really does pay dividends to spend a short amount of time. Really, it doesn't have to take a long time, but spend that time thinking about what you're going to say, the message, and how you're going to deliver it. So let's start with the message, what you say. I'm going to share with you one of my tools that I use with my own clients to help them really consider this, how to put together a really well structured update on a project that you're working on. So it starts with why. Why are you giving this update? Why is this important now? What is the greater context? And how does this fit into the team strategy or the organizational strategy? Starting with that why is really important. And it's not mine. I know that Simon Sinek came up with that idea of start with why. But there's a reason why that still resonates today, something like 20 years later, because it is so important. Start with why. Why this update? Why now? Why does this fit into the strategy? From why, you can move into who. Who is it who's going to be in the meeting room listening to this update? What sort of questions and challenges are they going to be bringing to the table that you can anticipate and bring the answers to? When you think about who, think about their motivations as well and what it is you want them to do at the end. What is it you want them to know and do as a result of this update? Taking that moment is really important because it can help you really think about how you change the message so it lands well with the people who are listening. You're creating the structure so that it's landing into their listening rather than you just sharing. Also think about who is not in the room. There might be people who can't make the meeting. There might be people who aren't officially in the meeting room, but still have a point of view. So make sure you're very clear on who else you need to talk to before you get into the meeting room to get their opinion, to get their input, whether that is consulting them or whether you're informing them of what the latest point of view is. So from why, from who, we now move into what, of course, and what is really about the core of what you want to share. Sometimes I find that when I work with people, the biggest challenge is knowing what to share and what not to talk about. We have to be quite choiceful. We might only have limited time in which to share this update. So, a good question that you can ask yourself is, if I only had to choose three things to talk about, what would I choose those three things to be? Now, they could be quite macro, large level, top level ideas, or they might be micro. But if you can get really focused in on, like, if there was limited time, if your time got cut and you didn't have as much time as you hoped, what has to be said, what needs to be landed with these people. So focus on those top 3 points, the priority areas. Next comes when. This is really sharing any timing issues, timing implications, deadlines, anything that needs resolving around the time factor. This is a good point to bring that in, those considerations. From when, we then move into now what. Now what is really about those next steps. This is where we can talk about what we need them to do, what action they need to take, and by what stage. But we can also talk about elements such as challenges and the support we need to resolve those. We can talk about the risks and issues and how we're moving through those and who's owning those risks to make sure that we are clear. If we can't go with plan A, what does plan B or plan C look like? So there you have it, a very, very simple structure, a series of questions really to help us structure the thinking around an update in a meeting. But I find this incredibly helpful. I use this in my own work as well. So start with why, then move to who. From who, we're going to what. What are those 3 key points? When, the timing issues, and then the now what. Where does this go from here? So this should help you think about and plan very quickly the structure of what you want to say. And this will help you express it clearly, concisely, and articulately. But this is only half the work. The other half of the work is how you deliver it, the way that you bring it to life. And I think this is incredibly important. You may have a great message. You might have spent the time structuring it and going through the framework. I've just shared it with you now. However, if you don't pay attention to how you're saying it, it may not come across boldly and confidently. In fact, people may not lean into it at all. They may lean away from it. So this next part is just as important. And this might be something you spend some time on, not just in the hours beforehand, but maybe even the days before you get into this meeting, depending on the significance and importance of the update you're sharing. So it starts with your mindset. It's really understanding when you say you want to speak boldly and confidently, how do you feel about that today? Let me frame the question in that way. Are you feeling it? Or is that something that you've got doubts around? Perhaps you have doubts about the information that you're sharing. Perhaps you have doubts about how you're perceived in the room and how people see you. I want you to do the work on your mindset before you even walk into that room, to recognize that you can be bold and you can be confident in your own way. And that starts with recognizing your unique value. Now, this was something I touched on in last week's episode. Again, the link is in the show notes below. But this is quite important. You have to really recognize you are good at what you do and you bring excellent value. If you believe in yourself and claim it, then it is so much easier for you to speak up boldly and confidently. So please start with your mindset. And that isn't a quick, within a few minutes. That takes consistency, really thinking about it, putting your attention on it, and recognizing that you need to keep reminding yourself why you're great, what your value is. From mindset, I want to bring in a cultural intelligence dimension to this. This podcast is called Cultural Communication Confidence. And so this is very important. For many of you, you're listening from wherever you are around the world and you want to have that global impact. You want to become a global leader. So to do that, you need to think about who are you leading? What are the cultures that they're from? What are their expectations of you as a global leader? And what does that mean to be confident and bold? Because that has a different interpretation in one culture than it does in another. You want to get the right pitch, the right volume of boldness and confidence. You want to get it right so that you don't come across on one hand as too arrogant or too dominant in the meeting. And on the other, you don't want to come across as too recessive and too quiet in the meeting. So really think about the cultural context, the people that you're leading, the people who you're talking to, and understand what does bold and confident speaking look like to them to get that volume and pitch right. From mindset, cultural intelligence, I want you to think about your connection. It isn't just about what you're saying, but it is definitely about how you're saying it. And you can say so much with your eyes, with your smile, as a way to connect with others. Even in a virtual meeting, when you're able to bring that warmth and that humanness to the meeting, people lean into that. It's another way of showing your confidence and your boldness if you are showing your leaning into them, the way that you're connecting with others. So please don't underestimate this vital way, especially in virtual meetings. In fact, I believe it matters even more in virtual meetings. Think about your voice. Voice is, again, another important element. The way you sound, people will make judgments about whether you are speaking confidently and boldly. So when you speak, have a think, are you speaking up here, right in your voice box? Or are you breathing fully? Are you sitting and standing in a way that allows you to breathe, that helps you to feel more relaxed and helps your voice to resonate more fully so people can hear your voice, but also your voice sounds rich and full? If it doesn't matter what your voice sounds like, if you can make your voice fuller, a fuller version of you, and I don't mean louder, by the way, I do mean a fuller version, then people will connect with that. They will hear the confidence and boldness in that and lean into you. The final part of this is not just about the speaking. I believe that, particularly in a meeting scenario, the way that people lean into you is not just through how you're speaking and what you're saying, it's also how you're listening and asking questions. People really connect with this. When you do this, you show your confidence because you recognize that you don't have to do all the speaking. In fact, there is real power in listening as well, in asking the right questions and bringing people towards you in the types of questions that you ask. So there we have it. We have what you say, the messaging, and then we have how we're saying it, the delivery of that message. Both elements are equally important. I believe if you want people to lean into through the way that you talk, if you want to speak more boldly, confidently, and articulately, I think this is a really important part of becoming a global leader. And so let me ask you, where do you think you need to focus in and do the work on? Is it more around the structuring of your message? Or are you really great at that already and you need to pay attention in how you're delivering it to really make sure that people lean into you? I know this is important to many of you. As I mentioned at the start, I get so many questions around this topic because people want to be articulate and persuasive. They want to speak like a leader. If that's you and you know this is incredibly important to you, especially if you're going for that next promotion, then I'm really excited to share a brand new training that I'm launching this month. This is a free experience that you can come and learn more about what's holding you back becoming a global leader today. I will talk about how to elevate your personal brand, how to speak like a leader with more authority, and how to build up your leadership presence. If that sounds like you and you're really committed to the idea of going for promotion this year still, not just waiting until 2025, then this training is definitely for you. And the great news is it's completely free for you to attend. It's running in September 2024, and that's in a few weeks' time at the time of this release. And you can access your free place and reserve your seat by going to www.culturecuppa.com/become dash leader. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining me here today. I really hope you have found this episode valuable, and I'm very much looking forward to sharing another topic with you next time, the third in this mini series on cultural communication confidence.